to the hearts of our congregants. So we are about to launch our Slichot service. And holy wow, it is the last Shabbat of 5780. Our final Shabbat. Let's get all of those 5780s out the way. It's it. This is the last one. We get to end it together. So because we've got some learning ahead of us and then our beautiful Slichot program, we're going to get straight to it. So I encourage anyone to play along at home. Go make sure your candles are lit and get your Kiddush cup and something nice that you can smell. I use my Costco cinnamon box because my Besamim box is still somewhere in a suitcase. And I encourage you, if you want to just gather with your family, take a breath, breathe out Shabbat, start to breathe in the next week ahead. I'm going to just look meaningfully at Cantor Aronoff just to see if she will be ready in 2 minutes or so to then come in with her part. Beautiful. I'm going to start the prayer and then I'm going to throw it over to Cantor Aronoff. So we'll have some nice 9-9 anyway. הנה על ישועתי אבטח ולא אפחד כי עוזי וזמרתיה אדוני ויהי לי לישועה וכשפתם מים בששון ממענה הישועה לאדוני הישועה על עמך ברכתך סלע אדוני צבאות Imanu, Mizgaf lanu, Elohei, Yaakov Sela, Adonai Tzevaot, Ashrei Adam Boteach Bach, Adonai Hoshia, HaMelech Yaneinu V'yom Koreinu, LaYehudim Hayita, Ora V'simcha, V'sason, V'ikar, Kain Tihiyeh lanu kos Yeshuot Esa Uvashem Adonai Ekra.
Lai lai la 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 lai 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 nai na 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 nai 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 na 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 nai 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 lai lai la 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 lai lai nai na 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 nai nai la la lai 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 na 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 nai 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 na na nai 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim borei minei v'samim lai lai la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai 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 na nai 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 lai 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh borei meorei ha'esh lai lai la 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 lai 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 la 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 lai lai la la lai 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 nai 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 na 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 nai 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 na 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 nai 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 המבדיל בין קודש לחול, חטאותינו ימחול, זרענו וכספנו ירבה ירבה כחול, וככוכבים בלילה, זרענו וכספנו ירבה ירבה כחול, וככוכבים בלילה. שבוע טוב, 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 שבוע טוב. אליהו הנביא, אליהו התשבי, אליהו, אליהו, אליהו הגלעדי, במהרה בימינו יבוא אלינו, עם משיח בן דוד, עם משיח בן דוד. Shabbat Tov.
Shavua Tov. So just so you know, this is how much left I have of my Havdalah candle, which is beautiful. So I will have a new Havdalah candle for the new year. This will be thrown away, and a lovely physical gesture to throw away the year.
Considering how much difficulty Mel was having with this candle, I think we're in the same situation.
Yeah, I was posting online that we've got to buy the clergy new candles.
Yeah.
I'm making all these. And by the way, I'm getting a whole bunch of, yeah. No, I think there was a heart. Oh no, there was a heart. Someone, Cindy said, "What's oh, be careful, Mel." All right, Yasher Koach, thank you both so very much. So at this point in time, I'm going to shift things over, and we're going to be moving to the learning part of our time together. And then we're going to come back for just a little bit of a song, just to kind of conclude, and we'll try to do this by around 7:55, and then give people time to go to the Adat Ariel website. We've posted the link on our Facebook page. So after we finish our studying and our service here this evening, you can go onto the Facebook page. You can go to click on the link, which will take you to the website. You can go to the Adat Ariel website, go to our High Holiday section. There's a section that says Slichot. Click on that, and then it'll give you where to click and the little password to take you right in to a really beautiful service that Cantor Aronoff has worked on with so many people. Hold on a second. Okay, right, so at this point in time, let's do a little learning. Let's see, just Rabbi Yarkin, I'm gonna leave any kind of Facebook stuff to you at this point in time. Cool. It's so distracting to kind of look at Facebook and look at the screen and go back and forth. I appreciate it very much. Alrighty, my friends, so our learning for the next 15 minutes, here's what I'd like to be able to do. You know, we talk a lot about our desire to change and our need to change. And we have certain things in our own mind that we're like, oh, I need to work on this. I need to get better at this. I need to improve in this area. However, we often approach this desire to change without really understanding who we are as people and what the nature of sin is really all about. So we just kind of rush in headlong to try to change, but we haven't done some of the thinking that we need to do that might in fact give us some guidance as to not necessarily what we should change, but how it is we actually going about changing ourselves to become better people. So I'm going to do a screen share right now, and we're going to share with everyone two sources, or one source, two different quotes from one source. This is from this wonderful book I've been reading by David Brooks, who is a New York Times op-ed columnist, a really interesting man, a really interesting thinker. And this is a book that he wrote called The Road to Character. So let me just do a screen share and see if this works. Okay, so here we have on the screen the two sources that I wish to share. the two quotes. And the idea of looking at these two quotes for a few minutes is, as the title says, this is an attempt to understand ourselves, understand what sin is, and understand by that what we need to do to change. So the first quote that I want to share begins as follows. It says, "We are fallen, but also splendidly endowed. We have a side to our nature that is sinful, selfish, deceiving, and self-deceiving. But we have another side to our nature that is in God's image, that seeks transcendence and virtue. The essential drama of life is the drama to construct character, which is an engraved set of disciplined habits, a settled disposition to do good." So this is the first quote that I wanted to begin with in terms of understanding ourselves. Because what I believe David Brooks has done here is he has given a very succinct, very powerful understanding of human nature. And while there's elements of it that different scholars within Jewish tradition and different religious thinkers and different, psychologists and therapists might have certain elements about this that they would disagree with, overall, rather than getting down into the weeds of the details, I just want to look at some of the basic things that he's saying here. So let's start with how he starts, right? He starts by saying we are fallen, but also splendidly endowed. What does it mean to say we are fallen and splendidly endowed? I believe what he's talking about here is how it is that we are to understand who we are as people, right? We are fallen is to say that we are struggling, that we have a part of who we are. We have a side to our nature, as he says, that is sinful. In Jewish tradition, if we were to use some classic rabbinic language, we would call this the Yetzer Hara, which is that tendency towards self that has gone too far, right? It's a tendency to become not only just taking care of ourselves, which to a certain extent is appropriate, but when we go too far with our Yetzer Hara, we are sinful because we are acting in a selfish manner. We are deceiving and we are self-deceiving. We fool others, but we also, our Yetzer Hara manages to fool us too, right? And why does our Yetzer Hara, why does our tendencies towards selfishness fool us? Fools us in a couple of different ways. Fools us because it doesn't want to change, right? And that is something that we fear. All of us on some level fear changing, right? Because to say that we have to change is to say that somehow I have not been living up to who I should be, that I'm not as good as I should be. And that's a hard thing to admit. Plus, we kind of, some of us like ourselves and we're like, well, why should I change? I kind of like who I am. I'm not that bad. And that's when we start rationalizing who we are and how we are. And so we all have, as he says, this fallen side, if you will, this sinful side. This is just a part of who we are. And there is another side, right? That other side is what he would call God's image. And here again, others might challenge that, but we would also call our Yetzer HaTov, right? That inclination towards other, that inclination to move beyond ourself, to transcend ourself, to see ourself as being not the center of the universe, but a small part of it interacting with others. And therefore, as we transcend ourselves, we need to find a path of virtue and of deeds that enable us to live in a manner that is appropriate, that is reflective of that understanding and that sensitivity to others that are out there. So the Yetzer Hara, the tendency towards ourselves, the Yetzer HaTov, the tendency towards others, this is what it is to be fallen, but also splendidly endowed, which is also to say that life is a struggle, that there are pulls within us, taking us in different directions, seeking out different ways for us to be, and that drama occurs within our soul. I will come back to the next part of what he says, the essential drama, in a moment. For now, I just want to take a moment to look at the next quote. He says here, sin is not some demonic thing, Sin is not some demonic thing. It is just our perverse tendency to mess things up. And I just want to put out there, interestingly enough, this very kind of sophisticated, articulate, almost genteel man did not use the word mess things up when he wrote this quote. but I figured, let's go for being a little polite. So sin is not some demonic thing, right? Which is to say, sin is not something that exists outside of me. Sure, there are influences that might lead me down a path that I will say is sinful, but sin itself is not an external thing. It's not a demonic thing that's outside of me, that's constantly pulling me. The pull exists within me. And here's how he then articulates that pull. He says, sin, it's just our perverse tendency to mess things up, to favor the short term over the long term, the lower over the higher. What an amazing definition of sin. How simple, how straightforward, right? Sin is just favoring short term over long term, lower things over higher. Right? It is a reflection of the first part, when that side of our nature that he says is sinful and selfish and deceiving and self-deceiving. It's when that side takes over and is dictating our decisions and guiding us, right? That we go for the short term, that we go for the easy, that we go for the convenient over that which would be more of a struggle, right? And it is, as he says, the tendency to go for that which is lower rather than higher, right? To go for what we know is, not so great, not so good, probably shouldn't do it, it's really not right. But then it's easier, it's more convenient, makes us feel good in the immediate sense, and satisfies us the way that salt and pepper potato chips can satisfy you for like a second before you're like, yeah, that wasn't real food. And then he goes over and he says the following: sin, when it is committed over and over again, hardens into loyalty to a lower love, right? Which is to say, when we continually choose the short term, when we continually choose the lower, and we do that over and over again, that creates a pathway within us that makes us loyal to that which is lower, that which is beneath us. When I shared some of these sources with my Torah on Tuesday class this past week, one person immediately noted hardens into loyalty and was immediately thinking about Pharaoh, which I thought was a great comment. Right? Pharaoh, in a sense, is a paradigm of sin, right? He wasn't guided by that which was outside of him, according to the Torah. He hardened his heart. If one looks at the text, the first 5 plagues, Pharaoh hardened his heart on his own. It is the last 5 where we see God actually do the hardening. And some commentators have suggested that what this means is a reflection of what David Brooks is talking about as well. When we do something over and over again, the first plague, not doing it, second plague, not letting go, third plague, no way, fourth plague, fifth plague, are you kidding? Just stop it. When we keep doing things like that over and over again, that hardens, right? That hardens our hearts. And our hearts become committed to that which is beneath us. And now I come back to the little part of the first quote that I didn't go over yet. The essential drama of life is the drama to construct character, which is an engraved set of disciplined habits, a settled disposition to do good. And here I think is where we get down to what we need to do to change, right? We understand ourselves as being created with conflicting impulses. That's what it is, as I said, to be fallen and splendidly endowed. We have that tendency, that yetzer towards ourselves, that yetzer towards others, right? And if we continually choose the yetzer towards self, right, that is a sin. And that sin, when done over and over again, hardens and it becomes just part of our neural circuitry. And this is just what we end up doing. So if we want understanding ourselves now and understanding what sin is, if we want to change, what we need to do is create new habits. It's not enough to think about changing. It's not enough to talk about it. It's not enough to learn, to hear a sermon about it. Those things are all good starts. But to actually change, we have to create new habits. And creating new habits is hard. and it needs to be done intentfully, and it needs to be done slowly. But it is our habits that help create our character, that give people a sense of who we are. It is what we do over and over again that in fact defines what we are about. And so if we want to become better people, if we want to change, we need to change our habits such that it becomes instinctual to reach out to someone when we hear that they're sick. We want to create a habit such that it is instinctual to us. It's just done automatically to make sure that when someone is talking, we actually have trained ourselves, we created ourselves the habit to listen. We want it to become instinctual, that when someone extends a hand in need, right, we look to help. We want that just to become a part of who we are, right? These things can be developed. We often think of practicing things as in, practicing an instrument or practicing a particular skill that we want to kind of get better at, a basketball shot, whatever, right? For me, my biggest practice in the sport that I loved, which was soccer, was practicing to juggle the ball on my feet over and over again, right? And if you want to get good at that, only thing to do is do it over and over and over again. We understand this about so many different facets of our lives, but we don't apply that same logic to actually becoming better people, right? But it's a matter of practice. It's a matter of making sure that we harden into a loyalty to a higher love than a lower love, right? That this engraved set of disciplined habits leads us to choose the higher and the long term over the lower and the short term. So as I conclude my remarks for this evening, I want to throw out a thought for people, something to consider. Between now and Rosh Hashanah, I invite you to consider the following. What one small, tiny change are you going to make in your life this year to become a better person? Just choose one thing, one small thing, because the problem is when we want to change, we often change. We try to choose these really enormous things, and trying to change on an enormous level like that is just, it's too overwhelming. And then we're like, oh, it's not happening. And then we're like, oh my God, okay, I'm just going to throw in the towel, right? Can't change ourselves completely in a moment. We do this step by step and create a better character over time. So I invite you to take this week before Rosh Hashanah to consider, what's your small change going to be? What's the new habit that you're going to introduce into your life to help you become a kinder, more compassionate, more humane human being? And by the way, if you like, I invite you to, if you feel comfortable, if you want to share them with me, I would love just to hear what they are. But you don't have to. I just do that because I'm perennially curious as to kind of the habits that people will take upon themselves. So I thank you all for joining me and joining Cantor Aronoff and joining Rabbi Yarkin for our program before our Slichot service. Want to thank Cantor Aronoff and Rabbi Yarkin for leading us so beautifully in Havdalah. Want to remind everybody that we have posted on Facebook page again in the comment section, as well as on our page itself, the link to get to the communal Slichot services. And we're just going to conclude this time together with a little bit of singing to kind of get us in the mood as we then go on to join the communal Slichot service. So Shavua Tov, everyone. Shana Tova, everyone. And now I turn things back over to my partners in crime. Take it away.
Yasher Koach, Rabbi Bernhard. I want, again, to remind you, you can go to the Facebook page, you can go to the website, click on High Holidays, go to Slichot, and you'll find everything you need right there. We're going to end with Achad Sha'alti, which is from the Psalm for this season, for Elul up until through Hoshana Rabbah. Achad Sha'alti, one thing I ask of God, to dwell in the house of God all the days of my life, Achad sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Achad sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti bebeit Adonai kol yemei chayai. Lachzot b'noam Adonai ulevaker beheichalo. Lachzot b'noam Adonai ulevaker beheichalo. Shavua Tov. I'll see you at Slichot.
Shavua Tov, everybody. Shavua
Yesha
Tov.
koach to both of you. Mwah.
You as well. Take care, everyone. Look forward to enjoying the service with you.